what we've got here is basically the project is funded by the Grains Research and Development Corporation of Australia, and I'm speaking to you from well, my house, but Southern Cross University. I'm a senior lecturer in our Faculty of Science and Engineering, and though my background is in natural resource management, a lot of my work is with now is with farmers. I'm really interested in social drivers of change, and I'm very lucky to have a multidisciplinary team joining me here today to talk about what we're doing. So the GRDC wanted to support a transdisciplinary approach, so approach to understand what's happening and how we're seeing success in farming systems from across disciplines, including the soil health, farmer, how well farmers are growing in the farming team, also ecological indicators. And our team has been brought together to ensure that we've got a really objective, rigorous process to collect information on different farming systems and alternative farming systems and practices. So I've been at Southern Cross for 13 years now, and leading this project, and I work a bit with the Soil CRC, and it's a really exciting team that we bring here together. So I'm looking at the social environmental elements. Dr. Adam Canning, did you want to just, I don't know if you want to say a few words, or just put your camera on and wave so everyone can see who you are?
G'day. Adam Canning here. I am based in North Queensland, working out of James Cook Uni up there and partnering in on this project with Southern Cross. I used to be at Southern Cross, but now full-time at JCU. And my background's in, agroecology and water, and interested in how farms affect water and that sort of relationship.
Great, thanks, Adam. And Associate Professor Jackie Williams.
Hello.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, everyone. I'm based at Southern Cross at Lismore. I was at UNE for about 14 years as well in the Ag Law Centre. So my expertise is sort of environmental and social science as well as legal aspects. And I'm in Dorrigo at the moment on my little organic certified farm.
Thanks, Jackie. And I know Mick's experiencing a power cut, so I don't know if you made it in. Mick, are you here? So we don't have Mick. He's got a power cut in Austinville, but he is our soil microbiologist and agronomist with another fantastic mind and expert on the team. And David Davenport. Are you with us, David? I think maybe he is, but we've got some audio issues happening, as happens with the technology. All right. Will, if you want to say hello, give us a quick wave. I don't know if we've got. Oh,
Dave, it looks like you've been on mute now. You're right.
Yeah, it took a while to switch off. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh yeah, David, there you are.
So, okay, so I'm based on the Eyre Peninsula, and I worked for PERS for 25 years or so as a senior soil scientist on Eyre Peninsula. I guess most of my work is based around working with farmers, particularly looking at soil modification, addressing soil constraints.
Thanks, David. And back over to you, Will. Have you got your microphone working?
Hi, everyone. I've got a background in regenerative agriculture and agroecology, and I'm really excited about the project. I think it's going to be great, what we can achieve out of it. Thanks,
Will. Great to have you on the team. And over to Brenna. Did you want to give a wave? Brenna's joining us from the middle of Victoria, and she's going to be doing a PhD with us, looking at the water cycle on farms. I'm not sure if she's joined us this eve. And also Jen Ringbauer, who's doing our honours looking at indicators of wellbeing and resilience. Are you there, Jen? You are, Jen. I know you're there. Do you want to give a wave?
In the central west of New South Wales.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. All right. So that's our team. So I think really the key thing here is that we've got a really really broad set of expertise and knowledge and experience in working in agricultural systems, and which is really, really exciting. So we can really bring that knowledge together. And it's at the moment we're interdisciplinary. By the end of it, hopefully we'll be developing new ways to bring information together, which is that transdisciplinary element. So look, the purpose of this project was to get a better understanding of regenerative agricultural practices, key information, and the message from the GRDC and from us is that not everyone's going to see what they're doing as necessarily regenerative agriculture. It's a terminology that people perceive in many different ways. And the most important thing is that we have a broad range of growers involved in this project who may be trying a whole range of alternative and more conventional practices. And we're interested in looking at how systems might be changing in response to those different practices hopefully over a 3-year period. But some people are going to be, have been doing a whole range of practices for quite a long time, and others, whether they've been calling it regenerative agriculture or not, and others might be just on the journey and trying new things. So we're interested in all of those people and all of those different elements. So, the way we are seeing the regenerative approach is that it's a continuum of practices and approaches and ideas, and there's a whole range of different ideas out there. And a part of this project is to nut those out and try and get an understanding of, well, how do you guys understand what regenerative agriculture is? And that's what the survey was about. And we will keep sort of having those discussions over the life of the project. So the components of the project that we have, so we've got the initial survey, and that was sent out obviously over the last few months, and most of you would have had a go at that now. So that's to get a sense of what are perceptions of regenerative agriculture, and also to recruit people for this bigger project, and that's you guys. So thank you so much for putting up your hands and coming here today to learn more about it. Hopefully you'll go away from today with much more confidence in what the project's about and what we're here to do. So the other key job here that has been a huge undertaking by Jackie, which is to review the various indicators that are already out there. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to bring a suite of indicators together to get a sense of how different systems are going to be moving in relation to a whole range of different elements, which is your soils, which is your biology, which is your agronomy, which is your business, and also farmer well-being. So Jackie's looked at a whole range of that, including natural capital schemes, and she'll talk a little bit more about those. But also we're really interested in, well, what are the things that are important to growers? Obviously, it's, productivity, profitability, resilience of the farm. They're really key things. What sits under that, and what are the key things that you guys are wanting to achieve, so we can make sure that this project is as relevant to you as it can be. The GRDC and us want this project to be really useful and come up with some really useful information. That's why we want your input from the very beginning. And that's what the survey was initiating. So we've brought those things together to come up, right, it says a final set of indicators. It is not final at all. We've put together a set of indicators that we would like to run past you and get a sense of what you think. And we'll be doing that today. And then we will be establishing some regional farmer hubs. We've got people who are participating in this project from across the country, really broad areas, and we'd like to settle on sort of what the different hubs are going to be, which will be determined by where you all are. And then we'll be doing an undertaking a baseline assessment starting in August, September. And one part of the project that's obviously really key is getting that assessment, what's happening on the farm, and then we'll be wanting to undertake those assessments over the life of the project. And it's likely that we might not be able to do the same level of monitoring across all farms. So we're looking at how we can do what we can with the budget that we have. And the ongoing grower catch-ups. So I've run quite a few different projects with the Soil CRC, and we just found that this is something that really worked. People really enjoyed it. It's an optional thing, but we'd like to put together some regular catch-ups, which is a chance for you guys to say, well, who are you out there? What are you guys doing? What are you trying? What's working? what's not working. And some of those, there will be workshops that will there'll be meetings, there'll be discussions, and there might be parts that will then workshop different elements and try and nut things out so we streamline and get our processes right over the life of the project. And obviously the monitoring will be taking place over time. And that's likely to take one to 2 days per year of farmer time. But we're really interested in looking at the sort of the key element, and the key thing we want to get out of this project is hearing from you guys. As we trial different indicators, what are you finding useful? Which ones are relatively inexpensive? What is it, the inexpensive element that's important to you? Are they easy to apply? How are they working for you in different contexts and for people that are applying different practices with different priorities? There's a lot of complexities in this project that we're working to bring together. So Jackie, did you want to talk just a little bit about the review that you've been undertaking?
Yeah, thanks, Hanabeth. And I'll just give a brief overview. So one of my tasks was to look at the literature. So I'm thinking of, it's theory and practice about what are the sort of indicators for regenerative agriculture. So to start with, I looked at all the definitions of what is considered as regenerative agriculture to try and work out some of the themes for the indicators that we should be looking at. And so that came out as, basically a lot of the ecosystem health, whether that's at the soil scale or the landscape scale, was really, really important. These themes, I guess, if you look at them as farm scale natural capital. So I've worked in the past a lot with farmers in benchmarking natural capital or the condition of their natural assets on the farm. But also then once you've benchmarked those, what are the ecosystem services that are being delivered from the farm once you know the condition of those natural assets? And then there's all the ESG sustainability space that's really, becoming regulated in Australia and the value chains wanting to see that. And then the socioeconomic and agronomic indicators. So I don't want you to be overwhelmed by the next slide, but I was just looking at what are all the potential indicators that encompass environmental or ecological, agronomic, social, economic, business, and ESG sustainability. So it's a broad sweep of all the potential indicators that could be useful in this particular project. So maybe if you go on to the next slide, Hanabeth. So it's busy and I don't want you to get overwhelmed with them all, but we're just trying to find what would be a mix of indicators that would be really beneficial for regen farmers to use to actually benchmark, if you like, and also sell yourselves as regenerative farmers and to measure those things that matter to you. So again, this is from the literature, and I guess what we want to hear from you, and Hanabeth will go on now from the farmer survey of what we heard from the farmer survey. So that's the literature from theory and practice. Now it's just what you guys really need in terms of indicators as well.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, so there's a lot there, a huge amount of work in just bringing these together to get a sense of what is out there and what's also coming in for each state, which has been really, really thorough. So thanks, Jackie. And look, this is what came out of the survey. This is some of your responses. So what is important to you? And these are the different sort of things that popped out. And there was a few different items, but these were really the 3 key areas that people said were important to them. So there's a few things there that are things that will not surprise you, and there might be some things that surprise you. Quite a broad range there. One thing that did surprise me is that when we said the other indicator, community connection and engagement, education, and building networks popped out as really, really important as a goal for people involved in this project. Obviously, succession is something that's important across all farming, but also work-life balance, that came up as super important. And reducing dependence on synthetic fertilizers and chemicals came up as really, really important as well, but also enhancing biodiversity, ecological health, and trying to keep more water in the landscape, particularly in the lower rainfall areas, and business, and that's maintaining but I'll just jump onto the next slide because this really focus on the indicators that you said were important to you. Again, sorry, there's a lot of information there for you to digest. But again, this is just letting you know what we use to inform the indicators that we've chosen. So in terms of work-life balance, there's a lot there on balancing, making sure that obviously you want to be financially viable, you want to be having a strong business, financially, economically resilient, but also there was a lot around the importance of the resilience of the natural system and how you can have a look at that. Like visual assessment popped up across just about everything as being important, which is interesting because we will look at some of the more simple indicators that will be visual assessments in the project, but also things around obviously biodiversity. People talked about wanting to be able to monitor their biodiversity more, but just it being expensive. So that's something that we can bring in the project. Some of the more classic soil characterization measures there, but also some less common things that we might be looking at in terms of fungal activity, genomic sequencing, etc. So there's a lot there. But, look, I will make this slideshow available to all of you. I'll send it around to everyone after this, and it's in the meeting invite as well, so you can have a look at this in more detail. So we use those two different things. We use Jackie's work and the work of our team on building indicators, and we looked at what you guys had said are important and useful for you, and we've been nutting out and trying to refine down the indicators we want to use. So what I really love is to get your feedback on some of these that we've brought down here. So we want to give people plenty of time to have a bit of a talk. We'll probably have, let's say we've got 15 to 20 minutes to talk through this. And we really want to get your feedback on, is there anything really important that's missing? Are we in the ballpark? Is there anything there that you think is a really silly idea and you've tried it? So this is the soil indicators that we're looking at. And there's more sometimes that sits underneath those as well, because I can only put so much up on any of these slides, but there is more detail under there as well. But also in terms of the business elements, there's a lot there. There's really interesting in terms of what you were saying. Important people were talking about yield per hectare, obviously is a really common one, but also different ratios in terms of inputs versus profit input costs versus profit input quantities versus, so there's a whole range of different things there. And obviously there's a real crossover between a lot of these areas as well. So just to acknowledge that some of them you might think, oh, it's not quite in the right category, but we know it's hard to get it all right. So there's some of the ecological. Obviously, there's a lot that sits underneath natural capital assessment for those of you that are familiar with that. And there's different ways of doing habitat assessment. But a really common one is percentage of ground cover, and we can look at that on a smaller scale within paddock, but we would also like to do some as a part of this for all properties involved in the project. We'd like to use the geographic information systems and mapping, so we can gather a lot of information with your permission about property using different spatial layers. Did you want to speak to that a little bit, Adam? Being our GIS whiz.
Yeah, on the remote sensing.
Mm.
Yeah, so at the moment there's already obviously a bunch of layers out there or mapping systems out there that tell you all sorts of different things about your property. There might be soil maps or vegetation maps or water maps, whatever they might be. So you can get a bit of a baseline from those. The other thing that we can also do is look at remote sensing. So using things like Sentinel satellites and Landsat satellites. So these come across and they take images every 5 days for Sentinel, but longer for Landsat. And out of those imagery, so those are pictures that are taken from space, you can calculate various different indicators. And some of you probably even use some of these, like NDVI, which is often used as like a a proxy for crop greenness, for example. Some of you might already have some farm management platforms that tap into that sort of information. So there's a whole suite of different indicators that we can use to help tell us about what is happening on your property based on that aerial imagery from space. And then a lot of the time with the biodiversity as well, a lot of the time the species diversity correlates quite well with habitat diversity. So if we can see that there's a big range of different habitats and we can get an indication of the condition of those habitats, we can then use that to help infer how your property might be contributing to supporting biodiversity, for example.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. So we could do this one of a few different ways. I think I'll just show you the next two, and then I think maybe we could start on the soil stuff and then work our way around. Noticing that Mick is now online with us, the power's back on. So these are some of the agronomic indicators that we're looking at. And these are some of the social as well. So these are things you will have already seen basically in the survey. We're not going to be, I feel very strongly about asking people for as a few times as possible. You don't want to be asking the same questions over and over. So there'll be a little bit more involved in the project, but hopefully not too much. We were looking at some of these over each year as well. So yeah, just Mick, seeing as you're here now, Associate Professor Rose, would you like to talk a little bit about some of the soil and agronomic indicators that we're working on?
Sure. Thanks for that, Hanabeth, and apologies everyone for being a bit late to the meeting. Yeah, I think most of Lismore was without power, but anyway, we're back now. Yeah, so I guess looking at the soil indicators, there's a fair few different ways we can go about it, but really it comes down to kind of 4 different ways that we're looking at going about it. One is to use, I guess, farm records as a source of potentially monitoring how change is occurring in the soil. So things that we can think about there are, say, for example, if yield is being maintained and protein content of grain is being maintained whilst nitrogen inputs are coming down, then we can infer that a lot of that nitrogen is then being supplied by the soil. So we can look at kind of farmer records as one source of information around soil. We can also use remote sensing, as Adam just talked about before, using remote sensing as a way to look at different soil properties, and including things like ground cover as a potential proxy for some of those soil resilience properties, going into drought if you're maintaining ground cover and in areas that might indicate that you're still maintaining good soil health. And then probably 2 of the more kind of mechanistic ways we can look at soil are through what we kind of think of as local indicators of soil quality, where a farmer might make some observations around soil health, and can also take measurements themselves on farm. So things that we're talking about there are things like water infiltration, simple methods of water infiltration, where you can put on a known volume of water into a ring and just measure how long that takes to infiltrate into soil. We can also use test kits, like pH test kits, that the farmer can also use on their own properties. So that's the local kind of indicators of soil quality, and then technical indicators of soil quality. And there we're really talking about taking a soil sample and taking it off site and actually doing some chemical, physical, biological analysis. And so a project we've recently been involved with the soil CRC, we've been looking at a lot of those microbial indicators of soil health. And there's a real, a lot of advances going on in that area around genomics and a lot of interest in what we can do with DNA-based methods. So a number of our sites will be looking a bit more in depth at that as well. But really, I think one of the things we want to get out of this project is to make sure that we're learning and I guess the nuances around spatial variability and variability with depth as well. So what we want to do is to be able to demonstrate, you know, things like how many samples do you need to take from a paddock to actually monitor a change when you implement a practice change. And I think there's a lot of, you know, talk around that, but really start to put some numbers on how variable is your soil from place to place when you're talking about biological indicators. So therefore, can you get away with 3 samples in a paddock? Is that enough to actually measure a change over 5 years? Or is there just so much variability that you're only going to see a change if you're taking, you know, 20 samples per paddock? And therefore, you know, is that worth it? And so here we're kind of trying to integrate that with things like the carbon credit methodologies. So using a similar kind of methodology so that we can look at how carbon levels behave in soil versus a lot of other indicators as well. So then mapping over the top of that, a whole lot of the agronomic indicators as well. So I'll probably leave it there, Hanabeth, because there's plenty to talk about. But yeah, hopefully we can get some feedback on that.
Yeah, that's
later
great.
tonight.
Thanks very much, Mick. That's a really nice overview. There's some really fantastic techniques that are being developed out there. So it's exciting to be able to bring them into the project. So look, I think we've talked enough. From now, I'd really love to just throw it out there to get some feedback from project participants. And thanks again for making it thus far and putting your hands up. And what do you think of what we've pulled together here?